morning, and thank you so much for joining us for our Ironwood Lunch and Learn put on by our Supportive Care Services Department here at Ironwood. Our Supportive Care Services Department is here for our patients to provide them support during their cancer journey as well as during their survivorship phase, providing them with assistance on their journey to wellness. Today for our Lunch and Learn, we have our Registered Dietitian Kindra Peterson presenting on fatigue and diet, the role of nutrition in fighting fatigue. Please help me without further ado in introducing Kindra Peterson. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the introduction, Sierra, and thank you everyone for joining me today while I talk about fatigue and diet and the role that nutrition can play in fighting your fatigue. My objectives for our talk today are to define for you cancer-related fatigue, discuss some of the causes of cancer-related fatigue, and explore tips for managing that cancer-related fatigue, including how food can help fight fatigue. So what is fatigue? Fatigue is often confused with tiredness. The biggest difference between the two is the fact that tiredness can be relieved by a good night's sleep, where fatigue cannot. Fatigue is much less precise and much less cause and effect. It is a daily lack of energy, an unusual or excessive whole body tiredness that is not relieved by sleep. It can be acute, meaning it can last a month or less, or it can be chronic, lasting anywhere from 1 to 6 months or even longer. The National Comprehensive Cancer Network, or NCCN, defines cancer-related fatigue as a distressing, persistent, subjective sense of tiredness or exhaustion related to cancer or cancer treatment and is disproportionate to the level of recent activity. It is not relieved by rest and tends to interfere with a person's usual activities, daily activities. So how is cancer-related fatigue different than fatigue, non-cancer-related fatigue? Again, it's not relieved by rest. It is disproportionate to activity. So oftentimes, other fatigue, there's an activity that has caused it. You've run a marathon, so you're more fatigued. Cancer-related fatigue, there's not that immediate activity that has led to the fatigue itself. 70 to 100% of cancer patients do report fatigue while on treatment, and 30% report post-treatment fatigue. So once they've finished their treatments for that fatigue, they still, or for that cancer, they are still reporting the fatigue as being an effect. And it is really one of the most distressing side effects of cancer. Again, 70 to 100% of cancer patients do report fatigue as a part of their cancer. It's probably the number one complaint I hear about from patients when I meet with them, whether it's my first meeting with them or I've following up and I've been speaking with them for years during their treatments. Fatigue, again, is the most common and distressing symptom experienced during cancer treatment, and 30 to 75% of cancer survivors continue to report fatigue symptoms even months to years after their treatment has ended. And you can see here by this graph, the condition that affects cancer patients' daily life the most is reported to be fatigue. And the condition that tends to last the longest, so they recover from it slower after treatment has been completed. Again, fatigue over the nausea, depression, and even the pain associated with their diagnosis. You can see here, this is from a study from 5 years ago now, in 2016, where it found that the symptom that affect daily living the most for cancer patients by far was reported to be the fatigue. And studies on terminal cancer patients showed that 9 out of every 10 cancer patients, 90%, report symptoms of fatigue as being an issue. Cancer-related fatigue has a negative impact on all of our functioning. It's not just you're a little more tired, so you're not as energetic and not able to be as productive, but it affects your sleep, your motivation to do things, your cognitive functioning beyond what we find with the chemo brain that tends to also be an issue, but it also affects your physical activity. If we're more fatigued, we're less likely to be active, which can actually make us more fatigued, which decreases our motivation. So it tends to be a cyclical problem that just keeps going and going. It is important to note that it is not age-related. We don't see that a younger cancer patient has less fatigue or less severe fatigue than an older patient. There doesn't seem to be a relation to the age of the patient. Causes of cancer-related fatigue, the cancer itself is probably the biggest cause. There are changes to your body that lead to the fatigue. There's increased release of cytokines, which are compounds in our body that cause inflammation. Not all cytokines are bad, but the bad ones cause inflammation, which adds more stress to the body, which can be fatiguing. We also know that many cancers are hypermetabolic. So your body has, your metabolism's higher, you need more energy in because of all the stress on your bodies. It weakens the muscles, can cause damage to organs, alters your hormones, all of which can compound the fatigue. The treatments themselves, whether it's chemotherapy, radiation, you've had surgery, you've had a bone marrow or stem cell transplant or other biological therapies, can cause more fatigue. The body is trying to repair the damages to those healthy cells and tissues, again, affecting the metabolism and resulting in more fatigue. Also, some of those treatment-related side effects can cause fatigue. So if you're anemic, your blood doesn't circulate the oxygen and other nutrients throughout the body as efficiently, which can lead to fatigue, nausea, vomiting, pain, insomnia, changes in mood. All of those contribute to and compound the fatigue. Also our emotions, the anxiety, stress, even depression that many experience as a result of their diagnosis and their treatment can make the fatigue worse. Lack of sleep, when we're sleeping less frequently, or having more interruptions into our sleeping patterns is going to compound the fatigue. Again, many medications impact the fatigue beyond just the chemotherapy drugs, and also that lack of exercise. When you're fatigued, you have less energy, you're not as active. If the side effects or symptoms of your disease or treatment are worse, you tend to be less active. And that can lead to the fatigue as well. And like I mentioned before, the hormonal changes caused by the cancer treatment, the location of the cancer can affect it. And then poor nutrition. We know that food is fuel for our body. So if we're not putting the fuel in, our body is not going to have the energy to perform. There are those increased nutritional needs. We know that cancer patients generally have higher caloric needs as well as higher protein needs. And if you're not eating and drinking well, then that's going to make the fatigue even worse. And then of course, the decreased appetite or intakes as a result of the disease itself or the treatment side effects. Cancer-related fatigue does not mean there has been a progression of your disease, or if you're a survivor and you're still struggling with fatigue, does not mean that there has been a recurrence. There has been no signs or indications that the fatigue, level of fatigue, length of fatigue has anything to do and is not correlated at all with disease status of progression or recurrence of your disease. There are some non-nutrition related things that you can do to help manage your fatigue. Improving your sleep routine, making sure you are getting adequate sleep. One way you can help with this is to avoid caffeine or alcohol and even tobacco products after 6 p.m. just to allow your body to get ready for that sleep mode. Develop a routine for your daily activities. This allows you to know when you need to start and rest and when you can have more energy for activities during the day. Planning your activities goes along with that. Help to prioritize what you need to do each day. And that can help allow you to save energy for the things that are necessary and more important for you to do. Take short naps and rest during the day. Once you kind of learn what times you are most fatigued, you can schedule rest periods around those, and you can mix rest with activity to help build or maintain your energy level. And it's important to make sure that you are resting often and you're resting before you feel too tired. It's along the same lines as when we talk to patients about controlling their pain or controlling their nausea. Best to get ahead of it, not wait till it's too severe. So by resting often and getting some rest before you feel so exhausted that you can't move can help make the fatigue less. Try to avoid activities that make you most fatigued. This is often hard for many of us, but asking for help, not being afraid to rely on the support from your friends and family or community to help you do things that you might not be able to do. If you're having severe fatigue, the last thing you want to be doing probably is vacuuming the house. So don't be afraid to ask a friend, family member to help with some of those things you just really don't have the energy to do, so you can save the energy for the things that you need to do to take care of you. Make your preferences known to your family and friends. If talking to people is exhausting, ask them to email you or text you instead of calling. Use your voicemail or answering machines to screen calls when you're really fatigued, and that way you can talk when you feel up to it, and you can get back to people later if you're not able to talk right now. If talking is helpful, let people know that their calls mean a lot to you and ask them to call more often. You need to be in charge and let people know how they can help you. You can also ask your doctor or nurses for help with things that add to your fatigue. There may be medications to help with the pain or nausea, vomiting, sleeping problems. If those tend to be issues for you, and we know that those can make the fatigue worse, addressing some of those other problems can help lessen the fatigue. Try to keep socially active. It's important to be around people, but pace yourself, and getting some light exercise, walking daily. Doesn't need to be long. It could be out to the end of the driveway, down the street to get the mail, but we do know that light exercise can help increase your energy level. And then make sure you're getting some emotional support. Let your friends and family help you deal with some of the stressors that might be contributing to the fatigue, and you can join support groups or other groups to help with that as well. We know that anxiety and depression can also make the fatigue worse. So if you're having issues with these, medications may help. So ask your doctor about that or speak with them about that. You can learn some relaxation techniques to help you manage the anxiety. There's apps for our phones and iPads and computers, websites that you can use to help you with relaxation and breathing that can help a lot with your anxieties. Ask your doctor about working with an occupational therapist if you need some help with how you can manage doing some of those activities of daily living. They can help you with special equipment or tips that you can use to help manage the things you need to be getting done. And then most importantly, as a dietitian, I have to say, follow a healthy diet. We know that eating smaller, more well-balanced meals more often throughout the day, including protein with all of our meals and snacks, is going to help with that fatigue. And we're going to talk about that more now. Cancer-related fatigue is often made worse if you're not eating enough or if you're not eating the right foods. So maintaining good nutrition can help you feel better and have more energy overall. Many cancers increase your metabolism or have that metabolic effect, resulting in higher calorie needs. Estimated calorie needs for a person with cancer is 15 calories per pound of weight. If weight has been stable, if you've lost weight prior to your diagnosis or throughout your treatment, adding up to or possibly even more than 500 calories a day on top of that is what you're going to need just to maintain your weight. So a person with cancer who weighs 150 pounds needs about 2,250 calories a day just to maintain their weight. It may be higher than that especially if you've had surgery, if you're going through radiation, if there's even more stressors on the body, it can be even higher than that. And if you compare that to a healthy person who weighs 150 pounds, their needs would be about 1,800 to at most 2,000 calories a day to maintain their weight. Remember that a calorie by definition is energy. The Merriam-Webster definition for a calorie I have there. It's a unit for measuring heat equal to the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water, 1 degree Celsius. I don't want to get into all the science, but they have these things called bomb calorimeters. They put pieces of food weighed out in grams in them, and it tells you how much what temperature has to be hit to burn that. And with equations, that's how we get calories in foods. But the most important thing there is that calories are energy. If you're not giving your body the calories you need, you're not giving your body energy. You got to remember that food is fuel for the body. We are not Teslas. We have to have fuel in us. So if you don't expect your car to run without gas, you shouldn't expect your body to. So where do we get calories? I think many of us know this. We tend to get calories from our foods from carbohydrates, proteins, fats. Carbohydrates and proteins provide about 4 calories per gram. Fats, 9 calories per gram. We also get calories from alcohol, although I don't encourage that to be relied on for a calorie source. So you can see here, if someone is struggling with getting the calories in and getting adequate energy into their body, you do get a little bit more caloric bang from your buck for fats. So if you are struggling to eat, increasing the intake of some of those healthy fats can be a good way to get you a little more caloric bang for your buck. Energy dense foods and nutrient dense foods are terms we hear. Again, energy dense foods would be foods that have a high concentration of calories per bite, and nutrient dense foods are foods that are high in nutrients. So they contain vitamins, minerals, carbs, protein, healthy fats, although they may not always be high in calories. So I have a little diagram here that kind of breaks it up, listing foods by nutritious content and caloric content. And ideally, we want to stay in the upper right-hand corner, especially if you're experiencing fatigue. These are going to be the foods that are high in nutrient-dense foods, but also some calorically dense foods. So things like nuts and seeds, avocados that have those good high healthy fats, beans and legumes, lentils, high protein foods, high fat dairy foods, poultry, starchy vegetables, whole grains, dried fruits, things that have good nutrients, lots of vitamins and minerals and fiber in them, but also some higher calorie foods. And then we have the lower nutrient foods, but still high calorie, things like potatoes, French fries, sugar sweetened drinks, baked goods, fried foods, sweets. They can be a way to get some calories in there. Ideally, those are not the ones we want the bulk of our calorie and diet to be made up of. Then in the top left-hand corner, high nutrient foods, so foods that are providing you a lot of good nutrients, lots of vitamins and minerals, but may not have all the calories you need. And this still important to get these foods because these are those foods that have those good anti-cancer, antioxidant properties in them. So fresh and frozen vegetables, fresh and frozen fruits, lean meats, fish, lower fat dairy, broth-based soups. They're going to provide you some good nutrients. But we don't want to just rely on those because you're not going to meet all of your calorie needs. But by focusing on the top part of this graph here and focusing on those foods is going to help a lot with managing your fatigue. Protein is really important. It helps rebuild and repair damaged as well as normally aging body tissues. It plays a role in our hormones, enzymes. It allows metabolic reactions to take place. It helps play a role in maintaining homeostasis throughout the body, just keeping our body functioning properly. The building blocks of proteins are amino acids. There are 9 essential amino acids, and this just means we have to get them from our diet. Not all proteins contain all the essential amino acids, so it's important to be eating a variety of proteins. Estimated protein needs during cancer treatment are elevated to 1.2 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, and there's 2.2 pounds per kilogram. So a 150-pound person would need about 82 to 102 grams of protein per day. For a healthy individual, the recommended dietary allowance, the recommended dietary intake for protein is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. So you can see just going through the treatment that at the low end is a significant increased need for that. Add to that, if you've had some surgery and you're recovering from surgery and also going through treatment, you are going to be on that higher end, closer to the 1.5 grams per kilogram. Some protein sources, many of us know those animal proteins, our meats, the chicken, fish, beef, pork, lamb. Ideally, you want to be choosing more of the lean animal proteins, more chicken, more fish, lean beef, low-fat dairy foods. Plants also give us some protein: beans, lentils, nuts, nut butters, so our peanut butter, almond butter, cashew butter, seeds. Those all are considered plant-based proteins. They tend to not have all of the essential amino acids, so we have to do some combining of foods to get all the essential amino acids from a plant-based diet. But we do know that plant-based foods, including plant-based proteins, are foods that are higher in antioxidants and other compounds that we know have some anti-cancer properties to them. And then there's protein supplements, whether it's a protein powder, protein shakes, numerous shakes out there: Ensure, Boost, Premier Protein. I frequently get asked, what's the best protein drink to have? The best protein drink to have is the one that you like, because it's the one you will drink. They can all be doctored up a little bit. Throw them in a blender with some yogurt, some berries, a banana, a scoop of peanut butter, and you can change the flavor. So the answer to what is the best one, it's the one you like. It's the one that's on sale. It's the one that's given to you for free. Any of them, nutritionally, they're all pretty similar. So choosing the one that you like the taste of is going to be the one that you're going to be more likely to drink. Talking just a little bit more about those complete proteins, or the proteins that provide all the essential amino acids. Generally, meat and eggs are considered complete protein. The white of the egg is pure protein. It contains all of the amino acids, essential and non-essential. Again, not all plant-based proteins provide you a complete protein source. So we do some combinations to make those complete proteins. So beans and rice is probably the most common example of combining two incomplete protein foods to make a complete protein. Fluid needs, it's really important to make sure that you are staying adequately hydrated. We do know that fatigue will be worsened if you are dehydrated. There's a couple of rules of thumb with regards to how many fluids you need in a day. The general one that most people know is the minimum of 8 cups, 8-ounce glasses of fluid a day, or 64 ounces, which is also 2 quarts or a half gallon. This is generally enough to prevent dehydration for most people under normal circumstances. And that fluid can include juice, milk, broth, milkshakes, things like Jell-O, anything that can melt and become liquid, and other beverages, and of course water. Generally, we don't consider caffeinated beverages to be the best hydrator, because there is a diuretic component to caffeine. So limiting the caffeinated beverages. If you are having issues with fatigue, it's really important to limit those after 6 p.m. so the caffeine does not affect your sleeping abilities. And then being mindful that fluid losses from excess vomiting, if you're having diarrhea, if we're in excessively hot weather, your fluid needs are greater. So you're going to need even more than just that 64 ounces. Supplemental vitamins. I often get asked about taking vitamins to help with the fatigue. Generally, we don't like people on active treatment for their cancer to be taking large amounts of supplements. Always best to get those nutrients from foods, but it can be a good idea just to take a basic multivitamin. If you're having issues with eating, or you don't feel like your intake is sufficient to meet all your needs, you really should discuss any supplements, whether it's vitamin and mineral or some of those other dietary or herbal supplements, with your doctor or a dietitian, because there are some supplements that can interfere with medications or the treatments you're getting, particularly chemotherapy and radiation. We do know that there are compounds that will compete with your chemotherapy drugs to get into those cells. And the last thing you want is to be going through treatment and be doing something that could potentially lessen the effectiveness of that treatment. Remember that vitamin supplements do not provide calories, which are essential for energy production. So vitamins can't substitute for getting the food in and getting the nutrients and calories from foods. A dietitian can help you with fighting your cancer fatigue. We can provide suggestions to help you work around any eating difficulties you're getting, any of those symptoms that may be interfering with your intakes, whether it's a lack of appetite, that early satiety, where you just take a couple of bites and you feel full and you can't eat anymore. Taste changes. We do know that many of our chemotherapy drugs and radiation, especially to the head and neck area, can affect your taste of foods, nausea, vomiting, difficulty swallowing. So we can help you work around those to be maximizing the nutrition that you're getting in. Also, if you don't have much of an appetite, you're filling up full, you find you're just taking a couple of bites here and there throughout the day, that's not going to be the amount of calories and protein you need. So working with you on ways to really maximize the calories and proteins you're getting from all the foods and fluids you're taking in. Cancer-related fatigue and exercise. I mentioned that, we do know that exercise can help with the fatigue. Decreased physical activity as a result of illness or treatment can lead to increased tiredness and a further lack of energy. So we know that regular and moderate exercise can decrease the feeling of fatigue. It can help you feel a little bit more energetic, which is going to help keep you more active. Even during cancer treatment, it's possible to continue and beneficial to continue to exercise. And a bonus is that physical activity and exercise can help stimulate your appetite. And it has also been shown to help lessen the severity of many of the side effects of treatment, including nausea. Some foods that can help beat fatigue: unprocessed foods. It's important to understand that processed foods are those packaged, canned, convenience foods, typically full of a lot of preservatives and additives, artificial ingredients, and other ingredients that are stripped of the nutrients that you would get from the unprocessed versions. This can cause you to slow down and make that fatigue worse. We know that fresh or frozen seasonal fruits and vegetables are beneficial to helping combat that fatigue. The fresher your food is, the more nutrient dense it tends to be. And I did put frozen in there. Oftentimes people think it has to be fresh, especially with some of our fruits and vegetables. But we do know that some fruits and vegetables, if you buy it in the frozen freezer section and buy it frozen and then steam or use as needed from a frozen package, it can at times be more nutrient dense and more nutritious for you than the fresh. And that's simply because when produce especially is being grown to be sold at the grocery store in the produce department, they pick it before it's ripe, meaning it's picked before its peak nutrition. Okay, so some foods that can help beat fatigue. Unprocessed foods. It's really important to understand that processed foods are those packaged, canned, convenience type foods, typically higher in preservatives, additives, artificial ingredients, whether it's artificial colors, sweeteners, or other ingredients that are just so stripped of the nutrients that you're really not getting the nutritional benefit of those ingredients in there. And we know that processed foods slow us down. They don't provide us with the same nutrient content and energy that an unprocessed, whole, fresh food will. Fresh or frozen seasonal fruits and vegetables. The fresher your food is, the more nutrient dense it is. I do have to add a little stipulation here of frozen fruits and vegetables. Oftentimes, the frozen fruits and vegetables can be more nutritious than the fresh food, that same fresh food being bought in the produce department. When produce is being grown to be sold in the produce department, it's picked before it's ripe, which means it's picked before it reaches its peak nutritional status. Whereas when it's being grown to be sold as frozen, it gets left on the tree, vine, plant, where it grows, until it's at its peak ripeness, which also means its peak nutritional status, and then it's immediately frozen. So don't discount frozen fruits and vegetables. Another benefit to them is they tend to last longer. How many times do we go to the grocery store and fill up our basket in the produce department and take it all home, put it in the drawer in the bottom of the fridge, and then we forget about it? With frozen, you take out what you need, and when you go back, you still have it there. So frozen seasonal fruits and vegetables, again, can be just as nutritious, sometimes more, than fresh produce department fruits and vegetables. And then non-caffeinated beverages. If you have to have your caffeine fix, best to opt for black coffee or unsweetened tea in moderation. And just be mindful that soda and energy drinks are full of refined sugar and a lot of artificial ingredients. And while they may give you a quick jolt of energy, you will have a crash later, and that can oftentimes leave you even more fatigued than you started. Lean proteins. We know that proteins are important, but the leaner the meat, like chicken, turkey, fish, it's going to provide you a higher quality protein, tend to have less saturated fats, higher healthy fats, which can impact your energy level and lessen your fatigue. Plant-based proteins provide quality protein as well as some other beneficial compounds like fiber and health benefits. Whole grains, complex carbohydrates, whole grains like beans, lentils, whole wheat breads, brown rice, whole grain pastas. These help your body get the full benefits of having that grain, the fiber, which can help with bowel regularity. And also because of the higher fiber content, the higher starch, the more complex those carbohydrates that make up that, the longer it takes for them to digest. So the slower your blood sugar rises after eating them, the less of a decline it has. So you get more of a sustained energy level. Nuts and seeds are some of the best foods to help fight fatigue as well as fight hunger. They give you the protein, they give you a good healthy fat source. So you're going to get lots of good nutrients with still getting the calories in. So I just kind of want to summarize. If I were to give a one-pager here with tips to decrease cancer-related fatigue, this is it. Making sure you're drinking plenty of fluids every day. We know that dehydration adds to fatigue, so drinking water, unsweet tea, 100% no added sugar, fruit juices, or even some electrolyte drinks can help with that hydration and help prevent dehydration. You do want to avoid regular sodas because of the caffeine content as well as the high sugar content. With juices, I do want to remind you that you're never going to find a fruit juice that has no sugar, because if it's 100% fruit juice, it's made with 100% fruit, and fruit has sugar in it naturally. So you want to be looking for juices that are 100% juice and no added sugars. Eat frequently throughout the day. Eating a small meal or snack every 1 to 2 hours is going to help keep your energy level up and constant. Making sure you're including protein with all meals and snacks is going to really help even more to make sure your energy levels are remaining up and constant. I always tell people you should be giving your body some kind of nourishment every 2 hours throughout the day. You don't need to wake up. You don't set an alarm to wake you up every 2 hours, but while you're awake, putting something in your body with some nourishment every 2 hours throughout the day going to help with that energy level. Again, avoiding those sugary foods and drinks. They can give you an immediate energy boost, but they're going to leave you feeling worse once it wears off and even more fatigued than you started. Can't stress enough focusing on protein. Again, it helps your body repair and heal itself. It builds up your immune system, which in the days of coronavirus or COVID-19, it's very important that we all have a good immune system, but it helps your blood cells, it keeps your energy level up, helps your body distribute nutrients throughout the body. Foods like salmon, chicken breast, lean burgers, lean ground beef, tofu, tempeh, some of those plant-based proteins, lentils, milk, nuts, butters, eggs, all are good high protein foods. An extra tip for giving a little protein boost to your diet can be using powdered milk. I know no one wants to drink it. It doesn't take the place of cow's milk, but powdered milk can be added to soups, hot cereals, casseroles, sauces, gravies, mashed potatoes, macaroni and cheese. Anything you're eating that has some dairy in it, some cream in it, it's not going to change the flavor, but it will add some added protein. I refer to powdered milk as the poor man's protein powder. You can go spend a lot of money on some protein powders that might not dissolve well or might have weird flavors to them. Powdered milk is just that. It's dried powdered milk. It was made to dissolve so people would drink it thinking they're drinking cow's milk. So you don't get that grittiness, that poor dissolving that you get with some other protein powders. So it can be a great way to add some protein and add a few calories to the food you're getting. Healthy fats, like those found in nuts and seeds, and making sure you're getting good fiber, fruits and vegetables, again, going to help increase your energy level, keep it more sustained throughout the day. Keep moving, fight fatigue with 10 minutes of movement per day. You'll be surprised how much better you feel with just a quick little walk to the end of the street and back. Important to not overeat and attempt to gain energy. This can lead to weight gain, which can worsen your fatigue. But how many times do we overeat and then you're just like, oh, can't move? So it's not a way to do it. Smaller, more frequent meals throughout the day is going to be much better at helping with that fatigue. If you find you're eating because of emotional stress, anxiety, or depression, or you're not eating because of emotional stress, anxiety, or depression, talk to your doctor about support for this. These can all add to your fatigue and worsen it. And there are things, medications and other things we can do to help with those. Talk to your doctor about taking any multivitamins or supplements. Again, we do know that some megadose vitamins can interfere with some cancer treatments, so always discuss supplements with doctor, dietitian, or pharmacist. Thank you all for spending part of your day with me. I hope this was helpful information. Keep an eye out for other Lunch and Learns and other programs being put out by Ironwood, and feel free to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, anywhere you get your social media content.
Thank you, Kindra Peterson, for this wonderful presentation on fatigue and diet. Very informative. And thank you, viewers, for joining us again this week for our weekly Lunch and Learn. Please join us next week for our Mandy Cass, our genetic counselor's presentation on My Family Member Has Cancer. Do I need genetic testing? Please join us for any additional Lunch and Learns every Tuesday from 11 to noon. To access any previous Ironwood Lunch and Learn, please check us out on Ironwood YouTube. If you need any support, please reach out to wellness@ironwoodcrc.com or reach us directly by phone at 480-314-6660. Thank you so much. Please be well.